Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, shehakol niyeh bidvoroi.
Amen.
Amen.
L'chaim, l'chaim livracha. Oh, that goes down just like water. Yes, in fact it is. In fact it is. Welcome, folks. Shavua tov, good tavach. Welcome. This is a very, very special week. We came from yesterday, a very, very special day. Parshas Zohar. We remember Amalek, the Amalekis, and the evil that they perpetrated, and that we have a mitzvah to annihilate that evil. Now, I don't want to say that, the leaders of Iran are necessarily the Amalekis, because we don't know exactly, so it's hard to point that finger, but it definitely fits the Torah portion really well, and what we read yesterday about destroying the evil of Amalek. The evil of Amalek is an evil that is specifically to diminish the Jewish people. And that's exactly what has been done the last 47 years by the regime in Iran. And there's eradication, destruction. And let's hope that there'll be a real change there, a transformation from darkness to light. From darkness to light. That's God willing. That's what will happen. It's also the Shabbos before Purim, that Yud Aleph, the 11th day of Adar. You can already start reading in some places back in the day when the farmers couldn't come into the big town to hear the Megillah reading, because in their farm towns they didn't have Megillah reading, so they could come in already on the 11th to hear the Megillah. So the whole story that happened in Persia over 2,500 years ago, the miracle of Purim, is now the miracle that's happening before us. That's quite something. How does that all fit in with this Torah portion? Because in the end, the Torah portion is God's divine wisdom. God's divine wisdom is limitless. Limitless. Which means it's all there. Everything that happens in our personal lives, our collective lives as a personal lives, and our collective lives as a Jewish people, and for that matter of all of humanity, what's going on, it's all there in the Torah, lessons for us to learn. So what are we going to learn from this? Okay, so in today's discussion, we're going to focus on the second tablets in this week's Torah portion that Moshe received. Now, I'm sure we're all familiar with the background story, but let's go there in any case. Okay. By the way, whoever can put on their camera, power to you. It's beautiful, and you can do that. And if you can't do it because you're eating dinner, that's okay. Just, share with us. Thank you. We have a lot of nuts over here. We're ready to share. I meant me and everybody else around the table. We're all crazy. So, the background story. The Jewish people come to the foot of Mount Sinai, and they make their preparations, and God gives us the 10 Commandments, as we all know, with great pomp and ceremony. The next morning, Moshe goes up on the mountain for 40 days and 40 nights to receive the teachings of the Torah, not just the 10 Commandments, but the rest. And as we know, he comes down the mountain with the 10 Commandments carved in stone, miraculously so. You could read it. There was no backside. It's carved through. You read it on this side. You read it on this side. Wow. It was legible both ways. Don't ask me how, but God can do whatever He wants. Right? And comes down with it, and he sees that the Jewish people, they're dancing. And they're not dancing because it was Purim coming, because there was no Purim yet. But they were dancing because of the golden calf. That their new leader to take them out of this mess, as they thought Moshe, wasn't coming back, that he had passed on. And so Moshe, does he do? Instinctively knew, it wasn't God telling him what to do here, but instinctively knew that he'd throw the tablets, break and shatter the tablets before the eyes of the people. And as a result, next day he goes back up the mountain. He pleads the case for the Jewish people for 40 days, 40 nights again. Actually, a third time, 40 days and 40 nights. And he finally gets forgiveness, and he comes down with the second set of tablets, which is, of course, on the day of Yom Kippur. If you count from when it happened, you can see the succession of the 40 days 3 times. On Yom Kippur, and becomes the Day of Atonement, comes down with the second set of tablets. So let's get right into the storyline. Let's share over here. Right click here, right? All right, except not for me. No, it's not perfect. Hold on. Let's try that again. No, because I don't have here it's not set up for me. I think I hit the wrong one. Hold on. See, look, it doesn't give me the. Okay, so.
Don't share anything yet. Just go to the PowerPoint.
Oops.
No problem.
Okay.
Just press
Escape.
escape. Yeah, please. And enable editing.
Or go here. Start slideshow.
Not yet.
No?
No. Mouse here.
Oh.
Oh,
Oops.
I think perfect. Okay. Now.
Okay. Yeah. Then of course I lose. Whatchamacallit? How do I go to?
Alt tab.
Alt tab.
Yep. Again. It's weird. Oh. Go. Zoom meeting. No.
Yeah. Go to the Zoom. Where do you see it?
Right there.
What?
And why it's showing is there, but
So and
escape.
no escape here.
No escape here.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Robin.
Maybe just close and start again.
That's what we're going to do right now.
Yeah.
Close. And editing, always. Open this. Then go back again. And click on the same thing.
Perfect. But it's not shared.
It's not shared.
And also, then you don't see anything here. Yeah.
I have to do an Alt tab again.
Alt tab. No, not working.
It's going behind you. That's why. Oh, just minimize this.
Yeah.
The left button.
I did this one.
No,
No?
this one. Yeah. Go back to your Zoom. Share.
Doesn't want to go.
It's right behind you. That's why.
Why should it be there? There's something wrong with the way it's.
Yep. I'm gonna fix that.
Yeah.
Right away.
That's the problem. Exactly. Thank you for patience.
Apologies. We are fixing it right now.
What are you making it as?
Yes.
Why does it change all the time? It has like a mind of its own.
It's not supposed to happen. Extend or duplicate?
Extend or duplicate. extension here, or I think it's duplicate.
Right. So do I duplicate these?
Okay,
Okay.
now let's
So
share.
This
Okay. This one here? Or this one?
I think it's this one.
Oh, same thing again. See, it's not giving me anything here to move it.
Go back to your PowerPoint again. Look here.
That's one.
Alt
Okay.
tab now. Yes. Yes. Now release. And now
Share. Oops, share.
close.
This one.
Share again. Yes.
No. Again.
Now it's good. Now
No.
again alt tab and go back to your printer.
That's it.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, folks. All righty. All right. So after Moshe shattered the first tablets, God forgave the Jews and gave them second tablets. And as the verse says, and God said to Moshe, carve out for yourself 2 stone tablets, this week's portion, similar to the first set, and I will inscribe upon the tablets the words that were on the first tablets that you broke. Okay. Excuse me. So, if you pay attention, the last 3 words, the first tablets that you broke. Right? That's superfluous. We don't need to be reminded that Moshe broke the first set of tablets, right? That's seared in our memory, you know? So what is God subtly, giving something negative, saying something negative to Moshe Rabbeinu? Is that what's going on over here? So actually quite the opposite. Our sages explain. It's a compliment to Moshe. A compliment. Yes. See, the words, asher shibarta in Hebrew, that you broke, right? These words are to compliment him. Let's explain. The Talmud tells us Moshe broke the tablets. What was he thinking? He said the Paschal lamb is only one of 613 commandments. And God said all the children are foreigners, may not partake. Here, the entire Torah is at stake, and the Jews are in a state of apostasy. How much more so are they unworthy of it? So, in other words, very simple. When it came to the Paschal lamb offering, it's only one of the commandments, and the children of Israel, that are foreigners may not partake of it. Here, that the whole Torah is at stake, and the Jewish people are not accepting it because they're accepting another god, the golden calf. How much more so are they not worthy of the Torah itself? Not worthy of the mitzvah of the Paschal lamb offering if they are foreigners, meaning that they're not circumcised, really, what it means. So here, all the more so. So where do we see that God agreed with Moshe? It is written that you broke. Rish Lakish explained that these words are, thank you for breaking them. What does that mean? So if you take the word asher, which means that in Hebrew, but remember there's no punctuation in the Torah, right? It makes the word ishur if you punctuate it. Ishur means permission or certification or like acknowledgement, endorsement, probably the best word. Yeah, I endorse your breaking of the tablets, of what God is saying. I endorse it. That's pretty powerful. Yeah. As we see in text 2b, the word that implies endorsement, God endorses Moshe's decision and praise him for breaking the tablets. Okay, so the obvious question, why did God endorse Moshe's decision to break the tablets? Okay, we see the play on the words, but why doesn't he endorse it? Furthermore, why didn't Moshe just return the tablets of God to preserve them for a later time? Think about it. A child who, you bought a new suit for, and they're acting out. So do you return the suit to the store because this child's acting out, or you just put it away and, on a good day, you'll give them the suit, or you'll give them a nice piece of clothing, or whatever it is, right? So why wasn't that done? Right. Okay, so the Talmud addresses the breaking of the tablets in several places, and here's just one of them. Talmud tells us, Rabbi Yosef taught that the tablets and the broken tablets shards were placed in the ark. The ark, which is in the Ark of the Covenant in the Holy of Holies. Both were there. Now there's the second tablets and the first broken tablets. Rishekish taught, sometimes undermining the Torah is its foundation. Okay, what's going on over here? Broken shards are kept in the Holy Ark? This which represents the most shameful episode of our history? God just came and gave us the commandments, and 40 days later we couldn't keep our act together. And so that's pretty shameful. So why is that being held in the Ark of the Covenant to remind us of that? And not only that, they're placed there kind of on par with the second tablets. And finally, what does Reish Lakish mean when he says that they're breaking the tablets, lay the foundation for the entire Torah? How's that? They sinned with it. How do we understand that? Questions are clear? Thumbs up? Amazing. Okay. Chaim. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, so we got some heavy duty stuff over here to appreciate. Okay. The text that we've read so far makes it clear that God regarded the breaking and the replacement of the tablets as something that was net positive, right? Of course, at first glance, it seems kind of illogical, right? But what we will discover is that when God granted us the second tablets, he consented to add much more to the Torah than he originally was going to give us. Much more was given to us. The Medrash tells us in text number 4. Moses worried the Jews had an advocate to plead on their behalf. Who will advocate for me? Moses advocated for the Jewish people that they should not be killed, right? But who's advocating for him, about the Torah? That the Torah, the tablets, he destroyed, right? So God said to him, don't worry. Over the first set of tablets, for they only contain the 10 Commandments, whereas the second set of tablets that I'm granting you will also contain the law, the Medrash, and the Agadah. This is the meaning of the passage, and if only God would reveal to you the mysteries of wisdom, which contain double wisdom. So what comes out of here? The second tablets are not merely a replacement, they're an enhancement. In other words, the Jews would never receive them, right? They wouldn't have got the 10 Commandments. They wouldn't have got all of this extra stuff.
Okay.
Right? So what comes out of this? That breaking the tablets was a terrible thing, but necessary at that moment. And in retrospect, it's actually a good thing, because it increased in the Torah that the Jews would receive. Okay? A blessing in disguise, right. So this explains why God endorsed the breaking of the tablets rather than returning them to God. That we get, because he got something more as a result, right? It also explains that why undermining the Torah ultimately laid its foundation, right? But does it explain why the shards were placed in the ark? So surely we're grateful in retrospect the fact that the first set was broken. But why would you put them in the ark? Because again, the shards, they remind us of two things. That the first Torah would have been much less, and the second set, then the second set, and that the first tablets, the shards, remind us of our sin. So why would we put it there? Why would God say put it there in the Ark of the Covenant, right, in this holy place, that it reminds us of the sin that we did? Is that clear? Yeah?
The question is clear.
Okay, good. So the rest of the class is going to be to appreciate the trauma, right, that you can go through in life. The breaking of the tablets, right, that was done before the very eyes of the Jewish people, gives us something much more deeper in life. That's where we're going with this, okay? And the answer can actually be found in the previous reading that concludes to teach us that the Torah possesses a double wisdom. There's two layers of wisdom in the Torah. There's the plain wisdom and the very profound deep wisdom. Okay? As we will understand, that the Jews gained in the second tablets not merely additional information, but also a higher order of wisdom. A higher order of wisdom. Let's understand that by first taking a piece of Tanya that many of us are familiar with, chapter 4 of Tanya. The Alter Rebbe explains about the Torah. God concealed his desire and wisdom in 613 commandments of the Torah and in their laws, in the sequence of the letters in the biblical canon, and in the teachings of the sages of blessed memory as documented in the Aggadah and the Midrash. He did this so that every soul, spirit, and vivifying force dressed in a human body would be able to grasp God's transcendental will and wisdom with their human minds. It is for this reason that the Torah is compared to water. Just as water flows from a high point to a low point, so did the Torah descend from its place of honor, which is the realm of the divine will and wisdom, where it is seen to be one with God, a plane on which no mind, let alone a human mind, can grasp it. Then it traveled from there, descending through the mystery of spiritual levels from one level to the next, following the devolution of countless worlds until it would be dressed in material concepts and a physical phenomena of this world. So when we read the law of the Torah, for example, the Torah tells us about a lost object, right? That when you have a lost object, you have to pick up the item and return it to the individual that it belongs to. And if you don't know who it belongs to, you got to check for identifying marks, right? Furthermore, the person who wants to, who says they lost the object, they have to know the identifying marks or some identifying marks to prove that it's theirs. But that's only the outer layer of the law. Underneath this simple law is a profound wisdom that's without limit, that no human mind can naturally grasp it. It's a divine wisdom. Now, God wants us to have that wisdom. So what does he do? He dresses up his divine wisdom in a physical experience called the lost object, right? And this is the parameter of the law. We learned this, if whoever studies with us on Rambam, right, Maimonides, we learned this, right? We learn the parameter of the law, and in a physical way that we can relate to that. We understand that, right? But little do we know that in the moment that we're grasping the law in our mind, we're also in there deeper layers that we're not conscious of in the moment. Perhaps we're not conscious of in the moment, is the infinite wisdom of God inside of it. That's why we call it garments. Like garments, you wear many garments, right? It might be hiding what's inside. It's hiding what's inside, but what's inside is there. So the outer garment is the physical experience of a lost object, and now the Torah gives us the parameters of that law. There's a lot of there's a lot of teachings in Rambam about the lost object and what you have to do. What happens if it's an animal, then you got to feed it, right? It's costing you money now. What happens if it's chickens and they lay eggs? So on and so forth, all that. So those are the laws of God that are in a external expression of a physical reality. Deep down within it is greater levels of divine wisdom that we're unable to grasp it naturally. Yes.
Sorry, Rabbi.
Go ahead.
When you say deep down inside, it's
in that law, in the very law itself.
Right, in the very law itself. But does that mean the concealment of Hashem, or does that mean just the deeper?
I didn't catch what was the question?
Does that mean the concealment of God within that?
The divine wisdom of God. There's an external layer,
Yes,
and a deeper wisdom, right? So the external layer is the simple law, right? Deep down within it is a much more profound divine wisdom. That law is the divine will of God, and doing what you're supposed to do with that lost object, for example, based on what the law is fulfillment of God's will and his wisdom. But there's much greater depth there that we are not comprehending in that particular law, right? Not right. For example, giving that as an example, right? Let's see what Maimonides says on this. Just as no human can understand the Creator in his truest sense, as it is written, for no person can see me and live, so can no person understand the Creator's wisdom. This is what the prophet alluded to when he said, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, and my paths are not your paths." So now we can understand what is meant by a double measure of wisdom in the Torah. It's not just a wisdom, more wisdom. It's an unfathomable divine wisdom that there are human concepts that act as garments to dress that unfathomable wisdom. So we read and grasp the garments, like the law of returning lost objects, right? But the inner wisdom to us is not comprehensible. But it's only not comprehensible on the frontal lobe, in our analytical analysis, on our critical thought. On that level, we can't comprehend it. Right? We're trying to make sense of it. It's something beyond. It's an abstract idea that the brain is capable of getting a glimpse of something that transcends us, that's greater than us. We don't quite grasp it logically. Not pure logic as Talmudic razor sharp thinking, right? So we get it in some kind of abstract way, as the Malbim explains. We only grasp the temporal external aspects of all things, the elements that we relate to our senses. This understanding does not enable us to know these things in their purity, sans the relationship between their outer elements and our senses. This is because our senses can only detect things that depend on time-space continuum. However, the essence of a thing is not conditioned on time or space. Therefore, we can't gain a clear understanding of a thing on its purest level. We can only know it through the effect on our senses. One who can grasp the essence of a thing without relying on data gained through the senses, but rather on the abstract mind stripped of the corporeality, will understand the hidden wisdom and know the true nature of things. For everything that exists on two levels. Its essential truth is different from the external element that can be sensed. Now, the Malbim here wasn't referring to God in this reading. He discusses all things that exist. We can understand an apple because what we see, feel, and taste of it. But we can't peel away the corporeal layers and grasp its essence. Right? Our senses can't pick up on a higher frequency level of the spirituality of the apple, of the flow of divinity that creates it and sustains it. We don't get that. Right? We get it on a corporal level. But is there in that apple a divine energy that animates it? Absolutely. So we're not going to get it through our senses. We're not going to get it through analytical thinking. It's something that's going to be abstract. Is that clear? So that's everything in creation. So the Torah also has two tiers of wisdom. The lower tier that's accessible through the human mind, and that which is beyond us that is abstract. Right? The abstract, higher level of Torah wisdom is what God granted us with the second tablets. So it wasn't more information merely that God was giving us. It was a higher level of divine wisdom that he was giving us access to. In other words, in the first set, he only granted us access to a wisdom that's dressed with material garments, knowing the do's and the don'ts. Right? That's what he gave us. The second tablets include a higher tier of divine wisdom that gives us an ability to grasp that deeper abstract wisdom. Something like what we learn in Tanya, right? Or we're learning here.
So it enables us to grasp the deeper aspect of the wisdom without us knowing it.
Well. Now with this, where we're going with this is to appreciate that to gain access to it, what Moshe Rabbeinu had to do, what do you think he had to do? What do you think he had to do?
Throw a tantrum.
He had to break the tablets. He had to break the tablets. To gain access to this higher wisdom, he had to break the tablets. And we'll understand as a result what that means shortly. Clear so far? We're just setting you up to the okay. Amazing. L'chaim. All right. So we're going to digress for a moment and appreciate this cup of water. L'chaim. If this cup were a broken vessel, I wouldn't be able to say L'chaim with you. L'chaim. Had holes in it, or if it's shattered, what value would it have? The value of a vessel is it can contain something when it's whole, complete. right? No holes, not shattered, right? Ah, now it's a container for something in our lives. That's in the material world, helps. It's got to be a complete vessel. And therefore, things in the material world, like in the Holy Temple, whatever vessels were used there, they had to be whole and complete. Today, when you wash Negelwasser, right, you wash on the Tilas Yadayim, right, you can't have a vessel that it's got a crack to it, or even has a spout, because then it's not perfectly complete, right? You can't wash with such a container that has a spout. Why? Because in the physical world, the reflection in the physical world needs to be whole things, right? That's good for the physical world. But when it comes to holiness, the opposite is true. We have a paradigm shift here. Godliness is only found in a broken vessel. Okay. I'm going to share over here.
I don't understand that part, Rabbi.
Well, we're going to explain it now.
All right. Thank
Well,
you.
yes. Again, I don't have the.
Share.
So this one.
Up left. No, no, no. Yes, yes.
It should be this one, but I thought I did this one. Oh, yes. I guess I didn't. Yeah, we're going to explain that. Okay. So again, the physical vessel works only when it's whole, yet paradoxically, only a broken vessel is effective for godliness. The Medrash tells us, Rabbi Alexandri said, if an ordinary person must use a broken vessel, it is embarrassing. However, God's vessel are always broken, as it's written. God is close to those whose hearts are broken. Ooh. Right? So in the physical world, right? And the human condition is, if imagine I'm sitting here with you and this was broken and it's seeping out the water, oh, that'd be very embarrassing. Right? Who'd be embarrassed, by the way? My animal soul, my body. But when we're speaking about the soul, we're speaking about getting close to God, which is based on our soul. Then those who have a broken heart, so can only fill up a cup when it's empty. When you're full of yourself, you can't be filled. So to become a vessel for God and His wisdom requires letting go of ego, creating an inner emptiness. That inner emptiness makes us a broken vessel. That's today's Tanya, if you recall. What is that? What does it mean empty over here? What does it mean empty? If I'm full of myself, what does that mean? Does it mean I don't believe in God? No, I believe in God, but I'm also something. Not only I'm something very valuable and worthy and great. If you're great, valuable, and right, then what's left to pour into you? You're brimming with everything that you are. What's the problem with this? It's not the truth. Because the truth is, you're not. Right? Because the fact that I could brim with myself is because I feel apart from God. And in truth, I'm not apart from God. I'm not separate from Him. Right? I'm not separate from God. Now, what's the difficulty with accepting that? I mean, we can understand that intellectually. We've learned enough of Tanya to understand that God didn't create the world and removed Himself from this world, but He creates this world at all times something from nothing, and therefore only because of the Word of God that He continuously animates me and everything else do we exist. We exist, as it were, in the mind of God. Just like we daydream and think in our minds, we create a world. Well, that's how God creates the world. The difference is, in my mind, it's only an image. In God's mind, it's me. It's me and you and everything else, right? Now, what's the difficulty with this? Is, hey, that's giving up control, right? Ego means edging God out because I want control. I want life on my terms. That's what adolescence is all about, right? For those who have or had an adolescent, or any of you, were you ever adolescent? So if you remember, right, what does it mean? Adolescence, by definition, means I just want to, I'm tethered to my parents. I'm tethered to my home. I want to be free from it, right? I want to do as I please. Now we're saying, oh, that's not the truth, though. The truth is, you're really a part of God. And that's frightening because now, does that mean I lose my freedom? The truth is, if we think about it appropriately, this is not a sacrifice. This is a step up in life. And when we embrace the truth, the essential truth, that we really are part of God, what this is really saying is, when you realize that, step up to emerge into something greater than yourself. Ego means I'm great with all my greatness. Put that aside because you're much greater than that. Yeah, but that's scary to put that aside. I don't want to lose control. That's the problem, right? But when you do let go and you recognize that you're greater than how you see yourself, then you're going to find infinite more bliss than living with your ego. And you'll never want to go back, right? It's like the child that gets born, comes out of the uterus, can't push the child back. And even the child had a comfort there, and it was wonderful in utero. The child doesn't want to go back. And now it's breathing on its own. It's got a life, right? But this perspective, we can only engage and gain it when we embrace our true identity. That we're not a finite, puny little being, but we're an infinite being with infinite beauty, infinite bliss, and infinite value. That's really who we are. But to gain that perspective, we have to undergo first surrender, bittul, to put aside my self-perception of who I am and to recognize I'm something greater than that. So really what it takes is to break the mold of who we are in our self-perception to recognize that we're something much greater than that. And it's precisely that breaking of the vessel, that emptiness, that sometimes can be painful, right? In the beginning, that surrender, that bittul, that turns us into something so much more sublime and more beautiful than we ever were. How does it change? It changed.
Yeah, it's acting weird. I need to check it out later.
Okay. Text number 8b from the Alter Rebbe. By way of analogy, consider a seedling that doesn't sprout until it rots and cavities appear in its shell. It works like this. The soil contains an energy that drives growth. The grain seedling contains a specific energy that can grow wheat that is converted into flour. The walls of the seed form a curtain that separates the two growth energies. Then the seedling rots, and the energy of growth in the seedling joins with the energy in the soil that drives growth. The same is true of a person. A wall of resistance surrounds the heart, preventing it from surrendering. This wall is the ego, which drives us to worship ourselves and our understanding of ourselves. Right? This is the curtain that prevents us from seeing the truth. However, when we meditate on the simple fact that the physical body influences our paradigm and is therefore flawed, our paradigm breaks and it turns us into a vessel. The body wants to survive. The animal soul wants survival. It's desperate, and therefore it needs its independence, its sense of selfhood in order to survive. Otherwise, I'm no longer. Each body sees itself separate from another, and therefore we live in a rat race. And it's the fastest rat that's going to win the race, right? Whether it's in business, whatever it is, business, life, home life, right? It's a jungle, a rat race, and each rat on his own. That's the way of the world. The soul isn't that way, though. That's the body, that's the animal soul, but not our divine soul. The soul is a part of God. It sees everything as a part of God. So there's no separation. There's no competition. So if we buy into the bodily paradigm, so we're always going to live in a jungle. We're always going to live in insecurity. We're always going to be in survival mode. Survival doesn't mean, oh, I've got my last cup of water and I got to survive. Survival means emotionally, psychologically. How am I going to get through this? Living through to survive the day. Oh, that was a tough time with, the family. That wasn't easy. Oh, I got through it by the skin of my teeth. It can't lead you to true fulfillment or true happiness. It's a false promise. By seeking the survival mode of life, and again, survival doesn't mean here, a piece of bread on your table. Survival means for us today more emotionally and psychologically more than anything else. Right? But true joy and true fulfillment and true happiness comes by accessing your true self, recognizing that you're part of something greater. You're not separate from another, and therefore one rat against another rat, right? We're not separate. We're part of something greater. Now, at first it's painful because we have to let go of myself and me, looking out for number one. I got to let go of that. And I got to trust down God. That's a leap of faith. That's trust. And sometimes it might feel scary. But once you break apart from this and you realize that the ego that sets me apart from others and makes me, feel devoted. And by the way, ego doesn't mean like it's me against you. No, you're part of my team because you give me things in life that make my life more beneficial. But once I can let go of that, and that identity falls apart because it's not the truth, then I can become a vessel for something much greater and much more sublime in my life. That's very powerful. So let's bring this back to the conversation of Torah study, because that's with the tablets, right? So we said there's an outer layer of the Torah and the inner dimension of the Torah. Inner wisdom, outer wisdom, right? The outer wisdom, we can use our brain, critical thinking, and we have to use our critical thinking to understand Maimonides, to understand the Chumash and Rashi that we learn, right? We can't take those ideas on faith. It's a mitzvah to understand with our minds. But to access the higher level of insight the raw divine wisdom. We have to break with ourselves, with our perception, the way we view things. We have to be able to surrender to God in a way that I have to be able to now be a vessel for something greater than what my mind naturally could comprehend, and enter into a state of a complete flow. So in practical level, that you know what that means, we toggle back and forth. Use my mind to understand. Then I come to the end of what I understand. I'd have to know, hey, there's something more here that I'm not getting now. That's beyond me at this moment. And that's an openness. That's you're not glorifying yourself in what you know. You realize that there's something more here to know. Right? Why is there something more here? Maybe I got it all. Because if it was, a human teachings, okay, that's all there is to know here, right? If you're reading a book of some author, great author, so okay, how much meaning could there be here? What this line said, right? Shakespeare, how much meaning could there be, right? It's human knowledge. It's very limited, but this is divine wisdom. So divine wisdom doesn't end. So we're never kind of like self-satisfied. Oh, I got it. Because once you got it, no, there's something more. Oh, there's more that's beyond. And the fact that you recognize that there's an author to this book called the Almighty God, and it's not just human knowledge, the fact that you give yourself over to that, you surrender to that, that's bittul, self-abnegation, that there's something more here because it's divine knowledge. Guess what that does? Opens you up to more. So there's this constant shift, if you will, right? They need the brain and the soul, right? So after elevating the Jewish people, one second. Actually, yeah. So now let's understand what happened over here. Come back here in a second. It's very powerful. Let's understand what happened over here now. Mount Sinai. God lifted up the Jewish people. He made them different than all other nations. He gave them his wisdom, made them his people, right? Where'd that come from? It came from God. All from God, right? So the fact that they're elevated is because God elevated them. What did they give? Nothing. Nothing. But they didn't give to this process. Because they didn't give to this process, the process is easy to lose. 40 days later, they sin, right? So now they need to give to the process. What's the process? They have to give of themselves. Surrender themselves. Surrender, shatter their ego. Shatter their sense of smallness and who they think they are. Separate entities. Not that there isn't God, but separate, right?
You mean the sense of largeness or smallness?
No, that had to be broken, the smallness. The smallness had to be broken.
Okay.
Smallness is your ego. Yeah, because that's small. Because how big could your ego be after all, right? Okay, some people, their ego, I know some people as big as Montana, but God and identifying with Him and being a part, right? And know that you're part of something greater, oh, it's even more than Montana, right? So what's needed is to become broken vessels to experience godliness. So this had to be achieved by Moshe Rabbeinu breaking the tablets. And he couldn't do it privately. He had to do it before their very eyes. Right? He had to do it before their very eyes in order that they would be aroused to shatter their own ego. And that's tshuva. That was their tshuva. That was their repentance. So as the Rebbe says in this week's Sicha, God thanked Moses for breaking the tablets because he broke them before the eyes of the people. This gave them a sense of humble brokenness, which turned them into proper vessels for a higher level of wisdom delivered in the second set of tablets and the endless additions found in the oral Torah. So this explains why God invested in the second tablets an endless amount of teachings. And he withheld it from the first tablets. Like, why didn't you just give it originally? Why not give it originally? Very simple. Because originally everything came from on high. Right? You can't get something divine like this as a gift. You have to make yourself a vessel to contain God's endless, infinite wisdom. God can't spoon feed you that. He can tell you the do's and the don'ts. That he can tell you. That he commands you. But to be open to the infinite wisdom of the Torah, they had to break themselves to make themselves available for that, open to that, a vessel for that. So therefore, the second tablets include the analysis, the debates, the homilies, the teachings of oral tradition that are endless, a lifetime of teachings. Why? Because they became a vessel for it. The first tablets, they weren't a vessel for it. They weren't ready for it. Because what they got was its measure is longer than the planet and broader than the sea. If you're bound with your ego, then you can't get something that's endless. They couldn't get that in the first tablets. And together with that, the deepest of secrets. As the Alter Rebbe says, the innermost mystical aspects of the Torah and Agada. For the secrets of the Torah are concealed in it. Right, so when, for example, many teachings in the Talmud that are seemingly like, quaint stories, but you got to peel back from the story and you're going to see deep mystical ideas that are there, secrets, the real raw wisdom of the divine that God couldn't provide in the first set of tablets because they weren't ready, they weren't a vessel, they couldn't contain it. Only after Moshe shatters, now they can, because he shattered something within them that opened them up to something greater that they would not have otherwise. And with this, now we can understand why this, and the first tablets are there together with the second tablets. Very simple. We thought the second verse tablets were a reminder of their sin. The contrary. Then that's what they're a reminder. They're a reminder of the tshuva that they did, that they let go of their ego. They were able to let go of the way they perceive the world and the way they want to perceive themselves as separate from God. They let go of that. As Moshe broke it in the front of their very eyes, and that they're embracing that they're really a part of God. They're divine beings. Oh, you're a divine being? Now you can get divine wisdom. You humble yourself to become that. So this is not just a reminder, but it's a pathfinder and how to gain that every time we study Torah. When we study Torah, before we study, we should think about, what are we doing? We study God's wisdom. That God is giving us the capacity that we are privy to Him and have a connection to Him, to His will, His wisdom, that His will and wisdom, right, become a part of my mind, that I could see the world the way God sees the world. I could have the wisdom of God the way He has the wisdom, because He gives me that capacity. How? Only when I give myself over to it in such a manner that I recognize the author and want to connect to the author, and therefore, having a closed eye and thinking about, whoa, think about it, folks. We're not so many here on Zoom, and we're some more people that are on, another a dozen or so on YouTube and Facebook, and some people will catch, the repeat. Not so many of us here that are privileged, that we can rise above the human condition by giving ourselves over to that which is a divine wisdom. And this is the ultimate remedy, how we destroy our enemy. To tie this in with what we learned, as mentioned earlier, in the unique occasion that we find ourselves, there is destroying the enemy physically, but more important is to transform people. So we need to transform ourselves from the human condition to a divine condition of life, as we learned here. And when we do that for ourselves, and we can inspire others around us, and little by little, lot by lot, we have an effect around us, is that people will look to transform their lives, to not live merely a human life based on the ego that we have, which means I feel my selfhood, I seek self-fulfillment. But when we realize that we're part of something greater than ourselves, a part of God, and that we have a ultimate mission to fulfill through that, and that gives us a power that there's no going back. Once you sense that, we're not righteous, or an ego will have, but the ego, we're not going to be so enamored with it. We're not going to be taken by it so much. So when I don't get what I want, then I'm going to be distraught. I'm not going to be distraught, because I know I'm part of something greater than me. And I have to fulfill something that's greater than me. I'm privileged to that. And when we let go of that, there's a weight that's taken off of us, and that we feel, we feel healthier, feel alive. We don't feel downtrodden. That's the way that's in general, and specifically here, as we're learning and studying the Torah, that it gives us an appreciation, and we feel like revived, like the Alter Rebbe says, when you study Torah, it's like the resurrection of the dead. What does that mean? The mind is cold. It's like literally, it's right. The heart is warm. Right? Emotions are warm. The mind is cold. It's calculated, right? It's cold. So the mind doesn't bring enthusiasm. The heart brings enthusiasm, right? The heart brings enthusiasm. When we give ourselves over to the study of Torah in this manner, so our minds become revived from the dead, meaning it's not cold teachings, it's warm, it's enthusiastic, it's full of passion, it's full of life when you study Torah on this level, and you feel and you sense how it's invigorating, how it's uplifting, and how, the problems that I had before or the things that I was worried about earlier, they don't exist right now. If that's the way we learn, then we know we're learning appropriately. We're giving ourselves over. If we learn, and after the learning, life is just the same as it was before, that means we didn't give ourselves over to it. We learned as, me, the human condition. Life moves on. Oh, yeah, that was nice. A nice vort, yeah. But, that was, it was a nice teachings and so on. The rabbi, he said, I didn't say a good joke today, so maybe, said a good joke, or whatever. It was nice. I mean, maybe sometimes I'm going to teach them, won't be inspirational. That's me, on me. But the teachings should bring us to life, to such a life that whatever beforehand, and this will be the litmus test, are we really connecting, right? That the litmus test will be that the things that I was engaged before, and I had some anxiety, I had some issues. I'm not saying that necessarily they were resolved. Well, on some level, maybe we merit that they were even resolved, but at least we feel uplifted that we just don't feel that we're in the same place we were an hour ago. So that's my bracha for all of you. And that's what the lesson was really all about, to bring us that notion. Any questions, any comments? Amazing stuff. No, nothing. What's going on over here? So clear. All right. Beautiful.
I just wanted to say thank you to Liba for the poster that she's put up. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Very good.
All right, folks.